Hey y'all. Um, Today I wanted to talk about the subject of performance anxiety. I'm not sure if y'all all know what that is. Basically, I'm not gonna give y'all the real formal definition. The definition I have for it is, well, from my own experience, is when it comes to sports or whenever you have to perform in front of a crowd for something, you can practice one way and you know you're capable of doing it, but when you get in front of a crowd, maybe because of the pressure or whatever, you get anxiety and you don't perform the way you know you can. You like freeze up. It's weird. So for me, I really struggle with this. I would say like the latter half of my high school year and all through my college career, pretty much. Well, kind of. And today I feel like the Lord really helped me get some clarity on it. I'm sure it's going to develop because, I'll be giving y'all real time updates of what me and the Lord be talking about. So this is just step one, and I'm sure it's going to develop. But I just want to share with y'all what I had so far because I hope it can help somebody else. And it helps me when I verbalize what's going on. It really frees me in a way that keeping it to myself does not. So this is a big reason why I wanted to go into sports psychology because I wanted to help people that suffered from this just like me. Because in sports, we see these athletes on TV and we're like, why are you missing shots? Why are you not performing? Why are you not, But there's a whole mental aspect of the game that we as fans don't realize. And I'm talking about sports. I know there are more things where people perform, but there's a mental aspect with the physical aspect that I feel like is heavily ignored. And so I don't know. I kind of want to still go into the field, but we'll see. I got to go back to school, and who wants to do that? So basically, I've been going through this thing with the Lord where I'm finding the root of my traumas because from Pastor Jerry Flowers, he says, if you can trace it, then you can unlearn it. So I'm trying to trace where all this stuff is coming from so I can work on unlearning it. Also, y'all gonna see me looking down because today I actually wrote notes. So I won't be before y'all for like 20 minutes. It is going to be a good probably 10 though. Okay, let me keep going. So basically, my performance anxiety was mostly with basketball. In my childhood, I started playing basketball for fun because I was tall and my mom tried to get me to do ballet and I didn't want to do it. I did soccer, but I was actually really good at soccer. But my grandma and my mom pulled me out because I slipped and fell on my back one game. And they said, oh, you're not doing this no more. So I had the height and my dad was like, you're going to do basketball. So I did basketball from elementary school all the way into like middle school just for fun, kicks and giggles. And I was good at it. So yeah, like it was a really freeing thing to do. I made friends. Like I said, I will keep saying I was good at it. And it was just really light for me. But then as I got to high school, I started playing heavily. Heavy playing, whatever. I started playing AAU, which is basically a competitive form of basketball that you play during the summertime because, you play school ball during the year and then over the summer, you play like more competitive ball where you're playing for college coaches and stuff like that if you're really serious about it. So I started doing serious AAU like my freshman year, I guess, of high school. I'm gonna be looking up because I'm jogging back. Not that it was that far ago because I'm still young. But I would say like around my sophomore year, junior year, I started traveling over the summers like heavily for months at a time for recruiting trips. And so basically a recruiting trip was basically we would go, we would play games. We would barely practice. We would play games in front of college coaches and you would basically, see if you could get scouted for a college scholarship. So honestly, like looking back, I mean, I had a lot of fun still, but it was a lot of pressure. Because it was a pressure of, college coaches, scholarships, playing time. Like it was so focused on performance. Like if you don't perform, these college coaches are not going to want you. If you don't do everything right, that college coach is watching you and they're going to write you off if you do one thing wrong. And so having that performance mindset for months at a time over my summers, and then school ball was kind of like that as well, but like the competition was easier. So like I'll go out there and play and, whatever. But AAU, it was like cutthroat. And so I didn't realize like the effect that had on my mental health until like 10, 12 years later, like now. I remember one time specifically, this is a core memory, where I was traveling with one of my coaches, and he had been yelling at me the whole game. All he did was yell, which I love him for, because he might watch this. And one time he yelled at me, and it was my last straw. And somebody was shooting a free throw, so it was quiet. And I was like, okay, I get it. I hear you. I hear you. And he just was like, he didn't say nothing else. And so after the game, he was like, a college coach saw you yell at me, and I could see him. He wrote your name off. You're not getting that scholarship. First of all, I didn't even know that college coach was like considering me, but that's how cutthroat it was. Like at the time when he told me that, my heart sank, because it was like, oh my gosh, I made one mistake and I might not even get to play basketball in college. Like what? So at the time, I didn't really think of it as a core moment, as a core like traumatic moment, but that was pretty traumatic. And so that was the basis of like all of the AAU summers for me, like perform or get off the court, or you're not getting a scholarship. So yeah, basically that was where the seed of anxiety was planted. Cause y'all already know, I've had tons of issues before that with rejection. So now when it comes to basketball, the sport I love, where I love having fun, it's just light. Now that seed of rejection, that seed of anxiety is now in that as well. So I think that's where the performance anxiety started. So fast forward, I get to college. By the grace of God, that's a whole different story how I got a full scholarship, okay? Freshman year was cool because with my performance anxiety, it has to do with pressure. If I feel the pressure to perform, I get anxiety and I don't play well. So freshman year was cool, mostly because like I'm a freshman. This battle is not mine. Like this game, I'm gonna get in here, play my little 10 minutes, but like the game is like really up to the juniors and seniors because I just got here. Sophomore year was really like cool, but I'm gonna bring that up later because that has something to do with my different point. But sophomore year was fine. Like I was 6 men off the bench. Wasn't no pressure. Like I'm still not a starter. So if I come in, I'm gonna do my little thing, but it's really up to the starters. It's no pressure. But junior and senior year was literal hell. It was hell. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on off the court. But the pressure came of now scouts and recruiters again, because I wanted to play overseas. It's like after college ball, if you don't go play overseas, you're basically done playing. Like you can go play in the women's leagues and stuff, but like playing competitively for money, like for a job, junior and senior year is the time when you get your film. And so I was worried about like overseas ball, recruiters again. It was like high school all over again. So y'all can see how my brain was like replaying the traumatic event all year. It was like playing time that I was worried about, because if I don't get playing time, then the overseas recruiters can't see me. Keeping my scholarship, because I had a full ride and a lot of people did not. And so that could be taken away any year. So playing for that, it just like created a lot of pressure for me. And so what I'm learning, so the way triggers work, triggers are basically like when your brain is reminded of a traumatic event. You might not be in that same event, but if your brain associates this event right now with your past traumatic event where, you were in danger or whatever, you will have the same emotions you had then. So you're like triggered. I don't know if I explained that right, but stay with me, y'all. So basically the way it works is you have a traumatic event where, you go through some type of danger, you get hurt, and your brain is like fight or flight mode. And so your brain stores that event with cortisol, which is like a stress hormone. Stress hormones is what helps us in danger, like I said earlier, with fight, flight, freeze. Because, if you have a bear coming at you, the stress hormone cortisol will increase in your body, and it'll cause you to flight, which is run, or sometimes you can fight, sometimes you can freeze. Like it protects you, but sometimes if your brain thinks that you're in danger when you're not, like with social anxiety, like if you're in a group of people and your brain is like, oh my gosh, we're in danger, it'll create the stress hormone again, and so you'll fight, flight, or freeze when you don't need to. You're not in any real danger, but your brain, thinks that it is. So, like I said, so the brain stores the event with cortisol, and then next, negative emotions are associated with that event, that traumatic event. So, I'll use my own example. Like whenever my coach was like, hey, you're not gonna get the scholarship because you did this. So it was traumatic for me because I was like, oh my gosh, I just lost this whole scholarship. I'm not gonna go to college, so I'm stressed. That's the cortisol. And then the negative emotion is anxiety, because it's fear, basically. I had fear with that event because it's like, I'm afraid that if I don't perform, I'm not going to succeed. I'm not going to have approval from these coaches. I'm not going to be accepted. And so after the negative emotion is formed, the defense mechanism comes. So back then, I don't really, with my performance anxiety, my defense mechanism physically, the way it physically manifests in my body is freeze. And so I don't play as well. Like when I'm anxious, and I can practice all day, I can know that I'm capable of doing this. But like when I get on the court and I'm in front of people and I feel pressure, I'll freeze and I won't play well. Another coping mechanism that I naturally do is I tell people not to come support my games. Like, I don't want any fans there for me, which honestly, like deep down, I do want people to come to support me. But because of my anxiety, because of like that fear, my coping mechanism to protect myself from being rejected, I don't want people to come. So I don't know if that makes sense. I was kind of all over the place with that. I wrote it down so I wouldn't be all over the place, but hopefully y'all got that. So, yeah, I feel like my whole college career, my brain was in a state of panic. It was in a state of like danger because, well, I guess the second half of my college career, because between, playing for overseas coaches, if I'm going to get to go, playing time, all these different stressors, that it was like, if I don't perform well, then I'm not going to get chosen. My brain, instead of me being able to have fun playing basketball like I used to when I was a kid, it was just stressful. It was stressful, and it was anxiety ridden, and I was always fearful of something. And so it affected the way I played. And on the outside, you would just look at me and be like, girl, why are you missing layups? What are you doing? And honestly, some of my coaches did do that, which is understandable. They didn't understand what was going on, but like, it was a mental thing for me. So I came here to say, that's the background of it. So today when I was asking the Lord, like, man, where did that come from? Why? Because, that's really something like from my college career that I kind of regret, because honestly, had I played in my games the way I practiced, the way I knew how to play, overseas would have been nothing. Professional ball would have been a piece of cake. They would have been knocking at my door. And so now, like, even at 28, when I'm years graduated from college, I still look back and I'm like, man, like, I really feel like I had more in the tank to give, and my anxiety got in the way. Oof. Okay, here we go, y'all. I'm almost finished. I always say that. I only have like 2 more points left. So basically, like I said, I'm still at the beginning of the journey, because like he said earlier, if you can trace it, you can unlearn it. So I just now was able to trace it, One thing that I'm seeing that helped, one thing I didn't tell y'all about, was sophomore year, I trained like crazy. Like the summer going into my sophomore year, I did insanity every day. I was playing basketball multiple times a day, and I was in tip-top physical shape. So going into my sophomore year, I did have that anxiety in the back of my head, but it really didn't matter because I was playing so well. Like I was so well prepared. And honestly, I feel like half of the battle of performance anxiety with me is being prepared. I feel like being unprepared is the breeding ground for insecurity. It's the breeding ground for fear. Fear doesn't have as much control over me when I know mentally that I'm capable of doing something. So if I know I've been in the gym, I know that I've been training harder than everybody else, like those thoughts of insecurity, they're not going to want me. They're not going to choose me. These scouts aren't looking at me. They're in my head, but they're not as loud when I know I've been training. I'm prepared. Also, the name performance anxiety, it's a fear of not performing well. So the fear isn't as big if you know without a shadow of a doubt you've been in the gym every day. You've been practicing as much as you can. You're fully prepared. But that's only half the battle for me. The second half of the battle is, I'm going to sound real spiritual with this, but like knowing my identity in Christ. And I know it sounds so much like a cliche because people have told me this before, but it's something I'm learning because I realize that I'm insecure, which means I'm fearful in a lot of other areas in my life. And that's because I don't believe what God says about me. What, like in Christianity, I don't know if everybody's a Christian who's watching this. God has this countercultural thing where it's like, you don't have to perform for God. God already approved of you beforehand. And then he was like, I'm going to help you perform later. But for now, you're on my team. So if he was like a scout, he would be like, I don't need to see you play. You already on my team. And as you're on my team, as I give you this scholarship, this money, I'm gonna develop you. That's the way God is, if I were to do like a basketball analogy. And also, so if I know that he already approves of me, out of that, he's the one that has the final say. Like, no matter, performance anxiety made me feel like I had to be perfect at every step in order to get chosen by these coaches. And it made me like fall to pieces. Like I could not perform. But if I have assurance in who God says I am, like I approve of you. I said that you're going to get a scholarship. I said that, I purpose you to play basketball. I purpose you to do this. Then I'm trusting in him to open those doors for me and to choose me and whatever. And not these finicky coaches. Because they can write me off because I did something, I missed a layup. But if God already said I'm going to get a scholarship, then you weren't the coach for me. Like, so he has the final say. So I feel like that sounds so spiritual because like, had I said that a year ago, I'd have been like, okay, girl, like, yes, but I don't know. Like, it's just really helping in the season of life. I said I was not going to be on here for 20 minutes and it is 17 minutes. So I'm going to get off here now. But I'm going to take y'all with me on this journey of performance anxiety because I'm still playing basketball. And I'm sure that insecurity and that fear of approval and like all this stuff is in other areas of my life. And y'all going to come on this journey with me. So thank y'all for listening. Okay, bye y'all.